Welcome, day 2 of 21-day quantum body reset. So yesterday we focused more on curiosity. Well, we're going to continue with curiosity, listening, going slow, looking for space in the body, looking for ease in the body. And we'll continue with that. We are going to bring in breath awareness, an easy breath, right? One that helps us soften in the body and also helps connect us into the body, right? That it's easy to get very distracted. It's easy to get into old ways of moving, right? Pushing, holding breath, pushing, holding breath when it's uncomfortable, holding breath when we're thinking, right? That allowing the breath to be not just part of the movement, but the inspiration for the movement. So we're going to start on the wall, and you can even sit in a chair for this. I do like the wall because it gives a different kind of feedback. It just depends on how you are set up in your space. So I'm just going to turn the camera towards the wall. We'll start there, and then we're going to move up to stand and then down onto the ground. Oops. There we go. Okay, so I have 2 blankets. And I'm going to put next to the wall. And then sit. Right, so I have a little bit more height, right? When you're sitting on the ground, the knees are high. Ideally, we want the hips at the level of the knees, if not higher. It could be even a little bit higher, which would just soften my body. And then I'm sitting back against the wall. Again, if you're in the chair, scooting back, depends on the chair. But I want the back of my pelvis against the wall and my ribs against the wall, and ideally the head. And most of us, right, we sit with the head forward, we move from the body moving forward, so that can be really challenging. So let's just do a little bit of roll down, rolling down and rolling up. So chin to chest, letting the back of the neck lengthen, and then feeling your back against the wall. So with the head forward, sometimes it's easier to feel more of the rib cage, at least lower part of the rib cage. And as you start to curl away from the wall, feel your body stay connected to the wall, right? The lower ribs, maybe you'll feel more of the back waist or lower back connect to the wall. Just keeping that sense of connection to the back wall. It doesn't have to be rigid, doesn't have to be a strong force. It's really also just connecting you to your back body. And rounding down as far as you can go, still with the pelvis somewhat upright. And then I'm going to slowly roll back up the wall. So back of the pelvis on the wall, and then letting the lower back slowly roll up onto the wall. And the lower ribs. And the mid ribs. And you'll notice at a point, the lower back wants to push away from the wall. Just think about lengthening or widening. Your inhale, almost move down and back against the wall. Just slowly rolling up. Again, don't push or force, just noticing what connects to the wall, what comes away from the wall. Well, my alarm just went off. And then play with, can you bring your head back? Does your lower back push off a lot? A little? What can settle back into the wall? Let's try it one more time. Chin to the chest. Right, just lengthening the back of the neck first. And then upper back rolls, mid back. And you can use your hands on the floor or on your chair or on your thighs. Right, I'm rounding, again, keeping the pelvis more upright. And then slowly rolling back up the wall. Lower back, lower ribs, mid back, that space between the lower ribs and the bottom of the shoulder blades. Shoulders, maybe back of head, maybe. And again, less about pushing your back to the wall. Think if you can think about almost softening and lengthening, widening. And then let's bring the breath in to help us. So inhaling, letting the breath almost come down. We did this yesterday on the floor, but coming down to the lower belly and lower back. Again, let your body position be somewhat comfortable. So if your head is forward, if your lower back's off the wall, doesn't matter. Inhale slow, let your breath come down into your belly, into your lower back, maybe up into your upper belly, kind of mid-back area, and then exhaling. Nice and slow and simple. We're going to put a little effort into the breath these first few. Next inhale, your next inhale, dropping down into belly, lower back, upper belly, mid back, maybe even up into the chest and upper back. And then exhale, softening shoulders, chest, upper back, mid torso, lower torso, belly comes in just a little bit. Inhale. And exhale. So the most important part of this is not doing it right, but doing it so it feels smooth and easy and helpful. Right, that we almost want to smooth it out. Right, anytime we change the breath, we can create a lot of either revving around the breath or we start to choke on the breath a little bit. So smooth it out. And what do you need to do to get that? Just relax and maybe even just focus on breath moving in, breath moving out. Maybe a slightly longer breath, just slightly. Or maybe a slightly downward movement of the breath. Good. Every once in a while, playing with inhaling lower pelvis, lower belly, lower back, or back of pelvis. Middle, upper, called a 3-part breath, very simple. The last 2 breaths. letting it slow down, soften, almost a little more diffuse. And just noticing, stretch the legs forward. If the legs are bent, if you're seated, let's just slowly, slowly come up to stand. If you're on the floor, slowly, slowly come up to stand. And just notice how you feel. Again, sometimes altering the breath creates a little more agitation. And sometimes it creates a little more ease. So just finding your stance. And what do you notice just about your sense of space? Right, sometimes when we're agitated, the focus goes forward. When we relax, maybe there's more sense of peripheral vision. The vision gets bigger, broader. Okay, so another thing we'll do, standing, just feeling the weight. We did this yesterday. And now I'm just going to play with a little forward and back, really subtle. I just want to let my weight shift towards my heels. Toes are still on the ground. And shift forward towards the ball of the foot, towards the toes. And just noticing, where is the weight? Is there more weight on one foot? Maybe that right foot. Is there more weight on the inner foot or the outer foot? Or the left foot? Is there more weight on the inner foot or outer foot? Inner heel and ball of foot and big toe, or outer heel and outer ball of foot and little toes? And then coming to center. Good, and stepping forward. And even the thought of stepping forward, you might have already done it. Just notice which foot you think about doing, and then go ahead and let yourself step forward. Notice which foot it is, doesn't matter which foot. Both feet on the ground, and I'm just going to let my weight shift forward and shift back. My back already adjusted. So with the feet on the ground, the movement might be quite small, depending on where the limitations are in the body. Again, we're not trying to push them to be different. We're really just curious about the movement, listening to what happens, or feeling into what happens. Right? We're looking for ease of movement. Is it easier to go back? Is it easier to go forward? Do you have to push a little bit? Again, letting everything be somewhat soft and feeling for sensations. That could be ease, that could be a little bit of a tightness. Some of the tissue might feel more sticky or dense, where some tissues you might not notice at all. And then letting as your weight shifts back, let the front of the front foot lift a little. And then shift forward. And shift back, letting the front of that front foot lift. And just notice what that does. Notice the sensation again. You might feel something in the lower back or the calf, top of the foot, or the knee. And then letting that back heel also lift a little. And I'm going to keep the knees somewhat straight for this one. So it might not be a very big movement, right? And this is really just to get a little movement through legs, pelvis, lower spine. And you might even feel that the head might favor one side as you shift forward or shift back, and maybe even letting it bias towards that side it's already going. Good, and then stepping back. And just notice again your vision, your sense of your body, your stance. And let's step the other foot forward. Then feet on the ground, and I'm just going to shift forward and back. So I'm noticing, right, some tension around my sacrum, just organization around my knees, right, especially my back knee. Some thickness in the front of the back thigh. Again, just noticing what you notice. Again, think of it more as sensation. What does it feel like? Is it sharp? Is it dull? Is it just a thickening of the tissue? Does it feel more like a pull or a sharpness or heat? Good. And you can even go slower. Right? Sometimes slower allows the body to adapt and to accommodate the movement, right? Giving more permission for the movement. And then I'm gonna, as I shift back, lift the front foot just a little, the front of the front foot, and shift forward and back. Oops, I forgot to do it that time. Shifting back, front foot, front of the front foot comes up. And then let's go ahead and let, if it feels right, the back heel come up a little bit. It's just a weight shift towards one leg and then the other leg. Again, sometimes slower may feel more wobbly, but there might be more acceptance in the tissue. Sometimes we can spring in and out of things to create that springiness in the tissue, to build resilience. But let's start more in the slow. And then stepping back, feet together. Good, and let's just do a little walk. Just a little walk, just to notice how the hips are moving, ankles, feet, knees. Change direction. Good. And then let's come on to our backs on the floor. Okay, got enough camera. So let's start with the legs straight. We did this yesterday, but letting the one leg roll in and out. Just a couple times, just to feel. Maybe even noticing, if you remember from yesterday, does it feel any different? The roll in or out, is anything easier or more awareness? Let that leg settle, do the other leg. Good. Again, noticing the density of the tissue, meaning that is it smooth roll where the tissue feels more, right, yielding or amenable, or a little more push where there's a little more thickening. Notice any sharpness, and then let that leg settle. And let's bend knees. Good. And let's start with that anterior posterior tilt we did yesterday. So letting the weight of the pelvis roll towards the sitting bones, right? So I'm arching a little bit. I'm pulling, in a sense, pulling the lower pelvis into the floor, sitting bones towards the tailbone, and then letting that pelvis then rock back. So I'm rolling up the back of the pelvis, letting the back of the waist come to the floor. So the sitting bones are tipped up, almost like a little rocking chair movement. And then anterior tilt. And posterior tilt. And anterior tilt. And posterior tilt. And again, make it as small as you need to make it. Make it as smooth as you can make it. And inviting the breath in. When we arch, if there's more room for the diaphragm to move down, belly can fill, inhale can come in. And as we posteriorly tilt, the abdominals engage a little bit, breath can press out. Inhale. And exhale. And coming back to center. Good, arms out to the side, feet just a little bit wider. So we're going to do what we call knee drops. So I'm going to let both knees tip to the right. I'm going to let my head also roll to the right. And then slowly, slowly, pelvis rolls back onto the back of itself, head rolls to the back of itself. So knees are going to slowly tip left, and I'm tipping as if, right, if I'm tipping the pelvis onto that left back pocket, so the knees aren't going to go all the way, whatever your capacity is. If you're very fluid, they may want to go to the floor. But let's just go to that left back pocket and the left back side of the head, left side of the rib cage, and center, and right. We broke this down in a slightly different way yesterday. And center. And slowly left. And slowly, slowly center. Head heavy and rolling. Weight shifts through the ribs. Pelvis heavy and rolling. And slow tip onto the right back pocket, right side of rib cage, right back side of head. Slowly center. And to the left. Left back pocket, left side of rib cage, left back side of head. And slowly center. And to the right. And slowly center. Good. And I'm going to walk my feet just a little closer together. And let's take that right leg up to the ceiling. So I'm just going to play with grabbing the tissue of that right leg and turning it in, right? So grabbing the tissue, squeezing towards the bone just a tiny bit, and then turning the tissue to the inside, to the left. And then I'm going to turn it to the right. I'm just turning left and right. Again, I'm just trying to grab the tissue and almost turn it around the bone. And then I'm going to turn the foot towards the opposite leg. So right foot towards the left leg. And then turn the foot away. And turn it in. All right, so I'm moving at the hip joint. I'm just kind of spinning that femur bone. Externally and internally. And then I'm going to bring that right ankle onto the left thigh, just above the knee. Good, arms somewhat closer to the body. And I'm going to do that same rock. I'm going to tip onto left back pocket, left side of rib cage, left side of head. Slowly back to center. Right back pocket, right side of rib cage, right back side of head. Nice and heavy and slow. Center and left. Slowly center, slowly right. Slowly center and left. Good, and slowly center and right. And coming back to center, I'm just going to let the right thigh wrap around the left thigh, and if that feels too confining, stay where you are with the ankle on the thigh. And again, I'm just going to tip a couple times, slowly left, slowly center. And this one, again, slower is sometimes easier, right? This is a very slight stretch to the sciatic nerve, depending on your nerve tissue at the sacrum. Slow tip right and center. The nerves, when they're agitated, don't like to be stretched very much. And slowly center. And slowly right. And center. Uncross the legs, extend the legs. Notice what you notice. Where in your body is they're more yielding to the floor? Where do you feel heavy? Where do you feel wide, soft? Right? Some places might still be pushing against the floor or plump. And let's bend the knees. Good. Let's take that left leg up. And again, I'm just going to grab the tissue and spin the tissue out and in, out, away from the center line and in, right? I'm just squeezing the tissue against the bone and turning the tissue around the bone and then rotating the whole leg, right? Foot towards the right, foot towards the left. So the knee stays somewhat over the hips. I'm just rotating that thigh bone, turning it in and out. You can even use your hands if that feels helpful or necessary. Good, and then let's bring that left ankle on that right thigh just above the knee. Good, arms can be closer to the body, and I'm just going to do a little tip, right back pocket, right side of rib cage, right back side of head. And maybe you notice just a shift in your speed of doing things, or maybe you might notice that the breath is a little deeper and it's easier. There's not much thought. Letting that inhale flow into an exhale. We haven't talked about breath much since we started doing this, but something to notice, especially when we're doing something new, we tend to hold the breath. So almost letting the breath move the body. Whether it's the inhale, nice, diffuse, open, like an open invitation to allow the body to move and soften into the movement, to become heavy into that movement, exhaling, just affirming that. Side, center, side, center. And then when you're ready, wrapping that left leg around the right leg if that feels available. And again, just do a couple more, tipping side, center, side. And again, letting the breath be smooth and easy, letting the movement be smooth and easy. Right, really listening for what feels good, feeling into what feels good, and noticing sensation. If there's sharpness, is it a low level or high? Maybe change your pacing to see if that has an impact, or change the range, how far out you tip. And then coming back to center. Let's uncross the leg. Extend the legs. Again, notice what feels heavy and wide and soft. Again, slow, smooth inhale. Slow, smooth exhale. One more. Finding your pacing. Pacing is really important. And it pulls our awareness and our doing together. And allowing us to find the most ease and grace in the movement. And just a little movement, fingers and toes and hands and feet, arms and legs. Bending, folding, rolling, and coming up to sit.